Good afternoon, everyone. We've just hit the hour, so I thought now might be a good time to kick things off. To start off with, I'll let everybody know that the session is being recorded, so please be aware of that. And as a follow-up to this webinar, I'll also send everybody a copy of the slides with a link to a recording of the presentation. So to start off with, I'll introduce myself. My name is Daniel Clark. I'm the Partner Manager with Rev-Trac, and I have the pleasure of introducing our two speakers for this afternoon. So our first speaker is Steve Brown. So Steve is a lead technical architect for Cognitus, and his experience lies in implementing large-scale S/4HANA migrations. So Steve is aware of the challenges that come along with taking on such an enormous undertaking like a digital transformation. He knows how to overcome those challenges to ensure a smooth and successful transition to a new S/4HANA environment. Our second speaker is Chris. Chris is the CTO at Rev-Trac, and he's recognized as being an expert in SAP change management. His experience is in helping organizations introduce change safely and efficiently. Now, whether that be as minor as an object change, right through to massive system migrations. So the format of this webinar will be about 20 to 25 minutes worth of content from our speakers, and then we'll follow up with a question and answer time. If you have any questions that you think of during the webinar, please send them through and we can raise them straight away. Otherwise, feel free to hold them to the end and you can raise them with our speakers directly. So without any further ado, I'll hand over to our first speaker, Steve. Thanks, Steve.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Hopefully you can enjoy, learn something about your journey from ECC to S4 conversions and how Rev-Trac can play a part of that. First, I just wanted to start with a little bit of information about Cognitus. Cognitus is a global company that we've been in business since 2002, and we have delivery centers all across the world, supporting a wide variety of industries, including aerospace and defense, pharmaceuticals, life sciences, and more. We truly have a global presence, and that allows us to have to utilize a follow the sun support model that really helps you fast track whatever your S/4HANA conversions and whatever other projects that you may have with us. Cognitus is an industry recognized partner. We have deep recognitions and deep connections with SAP itself. We're a certified support partner. We are a certified build partner. We are also a certified support partner, and so and a services partner. And so what that means is that we have very deep connections with SAP. We are tied in with their roadmap and what their plans are in a number of different modules. We're also a certified co-innovation partner. That means that we've developed a lot of new features for SAP that, along with the help of SAP. And so we have a little bit of everything that we can do in the SAP space, whether it's an S4 conversion or analytics or planning and strategy for how to get you to what your business will look like tomorrow. We have over 1,000 employees worldwide to help you figure that journey out and plan that. Cognitus has we offer a number of different packages in the SAP space. Our Gallup programs tend to be our most popular, and these encompass a number of different areas within SAP. The one that I'm going to talk the most about today is called our Gallup for HANA conversions, and that's going to walk you through the entire conversion process in a very fast manner. But we also have packages around utilizing how to make your business smarter, how to bring in deep, rich analytics into your business to give you greater insight into your business processes and how they're operating. We also have a number of solutions aimed at different compliance and regulatory requirements across a wide variety of industries, including aerospace and defense. and life sciences. And we also offer tools that are specific to each one of those industries. We're happy to talk to you more about them after this if you have any specific questions about those. But like I said, today I want to spend the bulk of our time talking about our Gallup pilot program. And what this program is it's a way to help jumpstart your conversion from ECC to HANA. As we all know, this is a really big transition that your business is undertaking. And so a lot of customers that we talk to find that they may start on the journey, they either don't know where to start or they get started and quickly go, now what do I do with all of this information? Cognitus has done this on a number of different customers where we can come in, offer the guidance that you need to help get you going, and then in a very short period of time, we can stand up a pilot conversion box. So we're taking your ECC data and converting it into what it will look like in the S4 landscape, and we're doing that in a very short period of time. That pilot box is running on your infrastructure, whether it's on-prem or in IaaS service like a AWS or Azure. And what that allows you to do is you get to know what your business is going to look like on S4, and there's a lot of outputs that come out of that. So you get a greater understanding of the challenges that you may have with your business. You get a better understanding of like what the output is going to be, and you start to get a feel for what the future of your business looks like as you go through this. These tend to be very short programs focused on some core modules like your FI and SD and MM, and we can, the scope of that can be expanded and tailored depending on the needs of your particular business. So when we talk about a Gallup pilot, there are really 4 phases that we're talking about doing. The first phase is just looking at your existing ECC landscape. We need to start getting an inventory of what you have in play, what modules you have installed, what your custom code that you may have in place is, and all of that stuff we need to get an understanding of that so we can know how to handle it as we go forward. We also have some automated tooling, not just from us, but also with other partners to help with that, with gathering all of that inventory. We also need to know what your non-ECC inventory looks like. So do you have a tool that helps manage your governance and compliance? Do you have analytics? What is your HCM solution? All of that helps us to paint a picture for what your landscape looks like as a whole. And then we move into the actual pilot phase, and this is kind of the technical implementation where we're standing up an S4 box on your infrastructure. It can be our infrastructure as well, but most of our customers like to do it there because that then becomes a springboard into a full-on conversion project for the entire business. But when we do that, we're offering you guidance about system sizing. We have expertise in a lot of on-prem infrastructure as well as various cloud platforms, and we can offer you guidance about the sizing and how you need to be and what that's going to look like in your future architecture. There's a number of different optimization steps that have to be gone through. There's simplification item checklists. There's some Fiori matchmakers, and there's a bunch of data migration tasks that are all part of that Gallup pilot. And at the end of it, what we have is a collection of reports to help you understand what S4 is going to look like in your business and what the transformation process is going to look like. In some of our customers, we do find that there may be a need to do some incremental changes prior to an S4 conversion, and that's also, and developing that roadmap to help you get to S4 is also one of the conversions. To help help focus this, we include all of the core SAP modules, which are going to be like your FI, your SD, your MM, those types of things. And like I said a few minutes ago, if you need to incorporate others that are super critical to your business, then we can certainly have a conversation about what that looks like. Now, one important part of what we're going to be doing as part of the Gallup pilot is to help manage the organizational change for your business. The conversion to S4 is a major business transformation that you're going to be going through. Some things the business is going to be forced into making certain process changes just because the way that ECC operates is different than the way S4 operates. We're going to help coach. We're going to not only provide you kind of the tactical roadmap for what exactly needs to change, but we're also going to be helping you paint a broader picture for organizational change management as we go through this. When we talk about change management, we like to talk about aligning the people and process and the technology, and all three of those have to be aligned together in order to present a good picture for not just for executives, but also for the rest of the business. If people don't understand why they're doing something, then that presents more resistance to it. We're going to help you develop that those processes as you go through this program. We're also going to make sure that the change that is coming to the organization is aligned with the strategy coming from the C-suite. We see this at a lot of customers where there's a disconnect between the strategy, the executive strategies that may be implemented and the day-to-day operations of the business. We're going to help kind of close that gap. Again, to help make sure that this business transformation that you're going through is successful. And at the end of the day, what we're really interested in is we want the business to adopt these changes. We want there to be fewer risks to the business as well as to management, and we ultimately want happier employees that are better utilized as at the end of the day for this program. So we're talking about organizational change management at a high level. If you kind of zoom in a little bit to the technical process of change within SAP, especially when you're looking at an S4 conversion, there's a lot of management and effort that goes into managing technical change and managing processes in an SAP landscape. And this is where a tool like Rev-Trac comes in and makes everybody's life a lot easier. So the Rev-Trac is going to first of all be an automated change management tool, so that there's all kinds of checks and sanity checks and safety checks that are just built into the product that are invaluable when you're doing an S4 conversion. Chris is going to talk about more of those capabilities here in a few minutes, but you are giving your developers and configuration teams the ability to see potential problems before they even get there. And all of this information is presented to the people and presented to the users in real time, so that they can make decisions about what needs to move and when they need to move it. You also get consistent results with an automated change tool like Rev-Trac. You know that when you approve a collection of transports, they're going to go to the same place every time. The IT department can put whatever controls that may need to be in place regarding documentation or process flows or whatever else may need to be required. Rev-Trac can link to other ITSM systems like Cherwell or ServiceNow to help paint that complete picture of the change management process. And the other thing that we've found is that because this is an automated tool, you don't get into situations where there's a manual process that has to be done. Somebody, just through the course of human error, a transport doesn't get moved, or they get moved in the wrong sequence. All of that goes away with Rev-Trac. And that's very critical to the success of an S4 project, because the business needs to know that needs to have that level of comfort that all of their changes are going to be there. And you're also going to be notified when a job fails. You'd be surprised how many organizations out there don't have that. Everybody loves the positive checks, but the negative checks are something that people don't know, that often fall through the cracks and aren't caught until far later than they should be. Rev-Trac is also going to help save you time and money in your S4 conversion. Your basis team is no longer sitting there babysitting transport queues and manually moving stuff around. That's a very time-consuming process. They are freed up to go and do other tasks that may be related to integrations or other tooling. So you're also going to get faster results too. So when you have a change that is ready to move to the next environment in your landscape tier, that's going to be a much faster process than sending an email to a group mailbox where somebody then picks it up and may get to it 2 hours later. And the result of all of this is that the business is really in charge of the change. The IT department or audit can put whatever controls that they need in place to help govern the process of change, but then it's turned over to the business, and the business can then take that and run with it, and they can move the changes that they need at the right time. And again, at every point in the process, Rev-Trac is giving people the warnings that they may need if they're about to do something, if they're about to make a poor decision on something. So all of that and all of those decisions are documented, so that Rev-Trac then becomes the audit trail for all of your changes going into SAP. I personally have been on projects where we've moved over 1,000 transports into the production as part of the production cutover, and Rev-Trac made that process very easy. What normally would have been about a week's worth of work for multiple people onshore and offshore was cut to a matter of a few hours to complete that process. So Rev-Trac is going to really help manage and govern that entire process, and is going to, not just during the project, but also after the project, because this tool is then going to transition into your audit tool and your change management tool for the entire organization and your entire S4 landscape. So with that, I'm going to pass the presenter controls over to Chris to talk more about Rev-Trac and in greater detail.
Excellent. Thank you, Steve. Really appreciate it, and appreciate the comments you had about Rev-Trac. I will be largely going over some of those points in a bit more detail, and then also talking about the general nature of Rev-Trac, outside of an S4 digital transformation. So let me start off, please, by sort of introducing our organization. Okay, so our organization's name is Revelation Software Concepts. We are a Melbourne-based company, which is where we're headquartered, and we do all of our development, marketing, support. All of our corporate administration is done out of Melbourne, which is where I am today. And we do have presence in the US. Certainly most of our customers are in the US, and also a lot of the more complex organizations, the larger organizations. We also have presence in Europe, and a good strong presence in Australia, of course. Rev-Trac is our flagship business line. So we're 100% SAP change management focused. We're dealing with the transports, and we're very confident in that space, of course. Rev-Trac has a product strategy, and we're going outside of just your typical transport management these days, and we're leading into some of the hot spaces for SAP application lifecycle management, including your digital transformations, Devops, moving towards agile in terms of agile development and delivery, and then of course looking at those new technologies that SAP is offering, coupled with your old-fashioned NetWeaver systems, including your BTPs, cloud commerce, ECP, and other things in the cloud. While we're confident in the SAP transport management space, we are looking at change management holistically, and we add those layers of control over the top of the transport management to give more control to the business. In the open market, we are competing heavily against solution managers charm, and a lot of our customers tend to have gone down the charm path beforehand and then find us as a simpler, lower cost, and both technically and more functionally better solution. So why Rev-Trac? Some of the key things, and a lot of this was mentioned by Steve just before, we do automated change management. So we don't want people thinking about transports. They should really just be a byproduct of what we're doing. We guarantee consistent results across a landscape, and obviously reduce the total hours of effort being applied to administering and working on changes with both simple to use processes, but also by keeping administration to the side, really hands off. It should be automated and a bit of a set and forget tool where possible. And finally, we're putting the business in control of change, whether it's a change advisory board, whether it's team leads who need to understand where their progress and their projects are. Rev-Trac's keeping people informed. So a bit about the automated change management. Some of the key capabilities are a fully enforceable process, and this is key. There's no workarounds. Once people start playing with transports, adding objects, Rev-Trac wakes up and it forces them to then comply with the process. This very predictable and consistent process makes it very easy to use. It's very little effort to get a new user onboarded, and then once they are onboarded, they're doing the same thing over and over again with Rev-Trac. So the only variables are the work and the types of change that they're doing, not the process that they have to follow. A key is to administer by exception. So when there's something wrong, you'll be notified. You don't need to manage every single change. If a change has an easy, happy path and it's going to migrate without any problems and it's not offending anybody because you're not impacting critical or sensitive objects, it's very easy to use. There won't be administrators involved. The users are just prompted to perform their tasks. But only if something is going wrong or if there is an exception, should we need to introduce an administrative layer. We obviously automate our transports and propose best sequence to prevent errors and system downtime. Users are always prompted when action is required, and they're given an option about how to proceed. And of course, we're providing an audit trail about their outcomes and the actions that they're choosing as they progress their changes. The approvals are obviously a huge feature. We make sure the right people are approving change at the right time. And this can be impacted by the functional area that they're changing, the change type, whether it's security, customization, workbench, or whether it's a sensitive or critical object. We can derive different approvers so that the right person is approving at the right time. And what we get in the end is an improvement that results in these three key points here: an increase of the volume of change that you can deliver, the velocity of change, and of course the quality. Okay, and those are cornerstones to the outcomes that we want for our customers to benefit from when they're implementing Rev-Trac. So for IT teams, we have a few key features that are going to help them to achieve and realize the increase of velocity, volume, and quality. So firstly, we automate the safe movement of transports and create a very predictable process. And these are some of the key features that technical teams can expect to benefit from. The extended cross-landscape object locking. This, in a nutshell, lets people understand if others are working on common objects. Okay, and this can be cross-system as well. So obviously, in a digital transformation from ECC to S4, the dev systems are communicating with each other, and if people are working on common objects, they'll be notified straight away. We adopt a shift left approach, which allows sensible decisions to be made as early as possible. So locking is an example of shifting left, as soon as somebody's impacting an object, if anyone else in the landscape is changing or working on the same object, they're notified straight away so that they can start making conscious decisions about how they incorporate their requirements into the delivery of the change. Of course, out-of-sequence migrations, system downgrades, and peripheral objects. Okay, that's dependent objects. Any dependencies are notified to the user, and they can make conscious decisions about whether it's appropriate to progress the change. We also automate some code analysis to encourage code compatibility across environments, and we're using either third-party tools to do that or ABAP Test Cockpit as well, which is very important when it comes to preparing for the S4 migration. And these features are all beneficial whether you're taking on a greenfield, brownfield, or bluefield strategy for migration to S4. So key points for putting the business in control. Okay, obviously the technical teams have technical tools to help them. The business has some good reporting and good oversight of what they're doing. So they're able to plan and control a very predictable go live. The release management workbench built into Rev-Trac's user-friendly web UI allows for a single click migration approval, and that can represent a change advisory board's entire approval over multiple changes within a single release. The transport sequencing and safety checks are managed holistically within a release, so we can automate the sequence within a release and obviously identify any dependencies that have not been included in the release that may need to be included. And the most important thing, of course, is every SAP change is recorded and it provides organization with a full audit trail. It's almost impossible to fail an audit with Rev-Trac. There are some ways, I'm sure, but we have a lot of very happy customers, and we have organizations that specialize in auditing SAP systems that recommend Rev-Trac to the customer base because they know it's easy to audit and it's pretty much guaranteed that you're going to be compliant with your regulatory standards when you're using Rev-Trac and you have an appropriate process to do so. So how does this translate to an S4 migration? So we spoke briefly about ATC checks. Even before you've decided or started licensing your S4 systems, ATC checks are very important to make sure that code is compatible. So as you're making day-to-day changes in your ECC environment today, you can be analyzing whether your code is going to be compatible when your ECC systems become available. And this is useful because obviously you're future-proofing your efforts and the time you're spending on your code base today. Now, whether you adopt that code into the S4 system or not, that's a question more for the project team as they come to that. But at least you know that should this code be required, it is available and it will be compatible. We provide the extended locking across both the ECC and S4. So if you can imagine, you have your ECC systems that are still supporting production and you're preparing your S4 systems to go live. As the users are working on objects in the S4 system, if they're working on common objects that are likely to be introduced from the ECC environment, it's important that they're aware that their work could be overwritten by a support change from the ECC environment. The locking allows for an organization to choose the severity of these locks as well. So it might only be a warning if your ECC change is locking against an S4 object, but it might be an error if the S4 change is locking against ECC, because it's likely the ECC change will need to be accounted for in the S4 system. This direction can also be tuned up as the project progresses and the criticality of the system becomes more relevant or increases as we approach a go live. Where compatible, custom code can be imported to the S4 environments directly from ECC. Okay, this needs to be a decision by the business based on the project requirements, based on the deliverables, determined by whether you can adopt native functionality in the S4 system or whether your custom code is still useful. But Rev-Trac certainly allows for the synchronization of those objects should it be required. And then of course, when code is inappropriate, either due to S4 capabilities or simply it's no longer a required change, the business requirement can generate what we call a clone, and it becomes a bit of a work order in that S4 system. So some sort of a process can be worked through to make sure that the business has acknowledged there was a change that went through your ECC landscape, maybe a new business requirement was delivered while you're building the S4, and a decision can be made whether to manually apply some sort of an alternative, not include the alternative or import that synchronized code. Okay, the business will have visibility over all requirements. So anything delivered across that ECC system during the S4 build will create that work order and will go into the project plan. And whether it's either shut down and not included or adopted and implemented into the go live, the business will have a complete understanding of everything that was delivered and its relevancy in the S4 system. So Rev-Trac, we believe that even post go live, and this is where we continue to add value, and even if it's not yet, an organization has not yet considered that S4 transformation, Rev-Trac's also providing a lot of value in just a standard support environment. The way we tend to be doing that these days is obviously you've got your automation of transports, automation of change management, but we are going into Devops being a big sort of topic and a big drive for people to look at Rev-Trac as a bit of an orchestration engine when it comes to organizing and automating their DevOps. Organizations can quickly realize a strong return on investments from their other application lifecycle management tools. Through our enforced process, we can engage with these other tool sets and make sure that they're being utilized. So instead of just having a tool brought in for a short period of time and then sort of being shelved, we can build it into the process and it continues to be used ongoingly so that that investment is realized. And of course, even across these third-party tool sets, we can continue to manage audit and compliance requirements and showcase results from some of these tools. So my next slide, I'm going to show you what I mean. This is certainly what we're talking about frequently in the market these days, and it's certainly created a big drive towards Rev-Trac being a tool of choice. This is what we call a DevOps tool chain, and I'll just emphasize the middle bit here. Okay, going from dev to QAS to production. This is where Rev-Trac's doing its transport automation, and this could represent effectively a Rev-Trac approval process to progress changes from dev all the way to production. We do have the ability to integrate with ITSM tools, and you can see we've highlighted Sherwell and ServiceNow. So as problems are identified by production users or help desk users or initiatives are created by the business, they can be generated automatically Rev-Trac tickets when an SAP change is required. Once the Rev-Trac ticket is created, we can start automatically notifying developers that there's some work to be done. And that's when the process can commence. Obviously specifications, test results, or anything else that requires documentation, we can integrate with document repositories and enforce that the documentation is being associated with Rev-Trac tickets before we progress the life cycle. As transports are created, objects are added, we can also then initiate code review before the release of the transport. Onapsis is one of the more security-focused organizations in that space, and obviously the ABAP Test Cockpit is the out-of-the-box and freely available one with modern versions of NetWeaver, so you can start making sure that the code is compatible. Should it not be compatible, we can issue an error or a warning to the users to let them know that they need to improve their code base before the transports are released and before they start progressing over to the QA system for testing. There is a possibility for impact analysis. This is sometimes being done at a release level so that we can fully understand the entire content of a release, but it can also be triggered change by change to make sure that the developers and the technical team are aware of what needs to be tested, but also what else is being impacted. If you're impacting things that you didn't intend to impact, there's an opportunity to go and revise how the requirement is being implemented. Then we shift across to the test automation and test management space. So as we progress into QA, we want to see certain tests being kicked off. We want to see the results of the test. And if it's being done automatically, we want Rev-Trac to effectively be automatically rejected should there be a failure, or automatically progressed as ready for the next phase should it be a successful outcome. We're working and have worked with HP ALM for many, many years, but now we're talking Micro Focus ALM. Obviously, Solution Managers, Test Suite, Tricentis, and Worksoft are common integrations that we work with in that space. Finally, then, once all is said and done, and we have a full audit trail of how this change has progressed and being compliant with the business's requirements, we can have that final approval and changes go safely into production with all the appropriate checks being performed. This can be either done at a change level, change by change, or we can have multiple changes dragged into a release and have a single big deployment of an entire release. I'll quickly move to this slide. This is just an example, and this is the final slide as well, of an actual customer. And this is a very, very large organization, global organization that is adopting this DevOps mindset. We do find some small organizations tend to do 1 or 2 integrations. The most common ones are with ITSM or Jira, as they initiate the change. But this organization has what I would consider probably a best of breed set of tools. We've got Onapsis, Tricentis, Live Compare. We've got Micro Focus in terms of the test management, and we do have the Tosca for the automated test automation, I should say. Sorry. And Rev-Trac is, of course, the CI/CD part of this and orchestrating everything within this change management process. So it's a vision that's becoming more popular in the market, and it is also where Rev-Trac's adding value well before the consideration of an S4 migration and well after the S4 migration is complete in a stable and maybe an unstable environment where you need more stability, and it can bring some stability to these environments. So that's my presentation. At this stage, I will say thank you very much, and also thank you very much to Steve for joining us today. I believe we're now opening up for questions, so I'll pass back to Daniel.
All right, thanks, Steve and Chris. There's some really useful information there. So yes, this is the question and answer section of the webinar. And to kick things off, I can see that Simon's already sent through a question, so thank you for that, Simon. His question is, what are the difficulties in moving to S4 that people often overlook from the outset? Steve, I might hand this one over to you.
Yeah, so I think one of the most common things that we see, the most common oversights that we see, is that the management tends to underestimate the level of change that that an S4 conversion is going to bring. So they think there's a perception that, there's been a perception created that, oh, S4 conversion is just an easy upgrade from ECC, and while that's true to some extent, people I think don't fully appreciate the degree to which their business will be impacted even just by doing the minimum amount of work required for an S4 conversion.
Thanks, Steve. All right, I might open it up to the floor now. Does anyone have any questions for either of our panelists this afternoon that they'd like to ask? Okay, on that note then, we might end it there. So this session will be followed up with an email with a copy of the slides and a link to the recording. From that point, if you have any other questions, please feel free to send them into Rev-Trac or Cognitus directly, or you're able to reply to the email that I send, and I'll make sure that it gets in front of the relevant person. Otherwise, thank you everybody for your time this afternoon, and good luck with your digital transformations.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you. Take care.